Well, hello there. This is Justin Dunn, Cat Lady Justin, and this is the Kitty Boss, where we pick, pamper, and protect your practically perfect pussycat for a lifetime of unconditional love. And today is our monthly catch-up with Dr. Rachel Geller, one of the world's foremost cat behaviorists. And each month we like to get together and catch up about all things cats. Well, it's the late summer. It's August time. Still got some heat waves going on around the world, and we still have some issues that we left untouched when it comes to cats and heat and the summer. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Rachel Geller to our show. Dr. Rachel, it's great to see you again. Thank you for being here, and I can't wait to unpack what we're going to talk about for today.
So nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as I mentioned in the intro, which you probably didn't hear, it's late summer. As we're recording this, it's August in the UK, and in the US, it is the late summertime. So it's still summer. We still have some heat waves around the world that are happening. If you're listening to this in another part of the world or another time, that's cool because it'll be summer at some point, and this will be relevant to you. So today, I thought we'd catch up about anything that we may have left untouched about the summer issues in the last two episodes, but also maybe reiterate some of those things, because in case somebody didn't listen to the other one and they're only going to listen or watch this particular episode, I think we discussed some pretty important things when it comes to cats and hydration. So that sound like a plan?
That sounds like a great plan. And you're right. Sometimes people watch the video and they forget, or maybe somebody missed it. And it is so important to our cats' health and well-being, make sure that they're safe and cool in the summer. So that sounds perfect.
Yeah. So as we're talking today, I've got my air conditioning unit upstairs on because that's where the cats like to hang out, Charlotte and Emily. And up until today, really, we had decent weather. We had a heat wave, and then it went away. It didn't last long here in the UK, but maybe a week I think 3-4 days. And then we went back to normal. But today is hot, and we're entering another heat wave, at least for the next, let's say, week or less or so. So I've got the air conditioning unit on at the moment. Haven't had it on for a while. And one thing that has come up with my cats is, I don't know if you remember, we talked about the different bowls that cats can have, and the potential for cats to develop some acne if they use the wrong bowl because of bacteria or whatever buildup. So I have a conundrum because the reason I used the slow down bowls was to slow the cats down, because they were eating too quickly, scarfing their food, and then barfing. Scarf and barf. So they were throwing up.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, scarf and barf. So they were doing that. And so I bought some stainless steel bowls after you and I discussed the fact that they're much cleaner and much safer. They don't harbor bacteria. Of course, if you wash them, if you never wash your bowl, forget it. But if you wash them, and it's much better. And of course, they've been eating out of that bowl now for a while, and Charlotte's tiny bit of acne on her chin cleared up. However, they're back to scarfing their food again. So today I had a lot of barfing to clean up, and it was clearly I ate too fast, because it was just the food. It looked almost identical to what it was in the bowl before they ate it, except now it was on the carpet all over the place. So it's a conundrum whether I go back to the slow down bowls and risk, some chin stuff with Charlotte, or whether I try to do something else. That way, what my mom does with her cat is she just feeds the cat smaller portions multiple times throughout the day. I'm not sure I've got the time to feed my cats 5 times a day. So I don't know if you have any suggestions on that one, but if you do, I'm all ears.
Well, that's a tough one because, right, we want to make sure that the cats are safe, but then we also don't want, the cats barfing or the cats to overeat. So a couple of things that I'm thinking is, if there's a way to really deep clean those ceramic bowls, maybe every night, with really hot water, and, give them a good washing. and maybe even do a little bit of antibacterial stuff, that may help with, if you really need to slow down bowls. The other thing I was thinking is you could still use the stainless steel and maybe add water to the wet food, because the wet food will absorb the water. They'll feel more full faster. So that could be a way to solve your problem of the scarfing and barfing. The stainless steel bowls really are the best for cats because they won't get that chin acne. And sometimes the vomiting can be caused by bacteria as well. So we might have to sort of make an exception in your case because you have cats who have two issues and not one. But, maybe let's try using the stainless steel bowl, but adding water to the food just to kind of make the cats feel more, full sooner. And that will sort of help with that scarf and barf problem. Or, when it comes to the ceramic bowls, really maybe run them through the dishwasher on hot, or wash them by hand, but use a really good antibacterial soap. And the other thing is maybe it just might be worth it in your case to buy new bowls every month or so too, and maybe rotate out the bowls so you can clean the other ones. So those are all kind of my first off the top of my head thoughts. But if something comes into my head during the broadcast, it's like, oh, I just thought of another idea, and I'll let you know.
All right. Well, sounds like I have some stuff to try, so I'll try both of those before I try a monthly plan for new bowls each month, because that's an investment, also a bit of a hassle. So I'm going to try that deep cleaning thing and all of that, and we'll see how it goes.
It goes. I mean, you don't have to feed them 5 times a day either. You could feed them like 3 times a day, and chances are they'll be perfectly fine. So maybe we can find that happy medium where they're getting enough to eat, so they're not getting cranky, but they're not throwing up, and, they're not getting the acne. The thing with the acne is it can be really uncomfortable for a cat. Sometimes it really can spread, and it'll be bleeding. So we sort of want to control that.
Yeah, which I did. So with the stainless steel bowls, right. But now she's back to, puking all over the place. At least just today. I mean, maybe it was just an upset tummy or something, and I'm overreacting. We'll see how it goes tomorrow, but I just don't want to have to clean that up again.
No, that
my poor little Charlotte.
Yeah, that's not the most delightful, effect of what we're trying to do here. Something else you might want to try is putting a little pumpkin. Some cat food companies do make plain pureed pumpkin for cats, and again, the fiber expands in their stomach, so it's another way to slow down the cat eating too fast, because it has water content and fiber. So that might be another thing you
okay. That's interesting. I might try that one too. Let's see if I can find it here on this side of the pond.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I'll try those things. Thank you. Now here's something else interesting. So I went for a walk today, and I must have ran into several cats. This cute little ginger cat who came and greeted me and everything. I posted it on Instagram. It's quite cute. I got a bunch of likes. So, and then a couple other cats. So I'm seeing a lot of cats outdoors, and keeping track of them is one thing. And one way, of course, to keep track of cats is collars, is to use a collar on a cat. Obviously, microchipping is another one. But I posted a picture of Emily, a beautiful picture of her with a purple collar, which actually, to be honest with you, normally when my cats are indoor cats, I don't have a collar on Emily because it irritates her neck. She's got, bare skin now around her neck where a collar used to be. Charlotte still wears her collar. She likes it. It's all good. But the thing about the purple thing is it's got a all natural, so it's not a toxic one, but it's a kind of a flea tick repelling type of thing. So it's just kind of what I like to do, because I don't like to put them on regular medication, because it's quite harsh, and also harsh on humans. But one person commented, I think it was on LinkedIn, that she would never put a collar on a cat. They're meant to be free and all this kind of stuff. And in a sense, and that they'll know who provides their food and all that. So in a sense, I agree. But on the other hand, I think there's other issues around there. So number one, again, I put it on there for the flea tick reason. But the other thing is when I saw those cats out there, I mean, some of them had collars. The ginger one didn't, but the other ones did. And collars are a great way to keep a cat, to have information on there. So if the cat is lost or injured or something, somebody can know where to bring the cat or who to call. Now, obviously, a microchip would be another solution to that. And I'm not sure how this particular individual would feel about microchipping. But if you microchip the cat, then it has your information on it if it's scanned at a vet. But that's the thing, is you have to, if you find a stray or a cat that you're not sure of, you got to bring it to a vet that can scan it. You got to bring it somewhere that can scan it. And, well, if it's an owned cat, and you may have just like perturbed the owner saying, my cat was just out for a walk. So that's kind of another issue there. I mean, if you're listening in the UK, we have Cats Protection has this Cat Finder app where if you happen to see a cat, which I did, I think 2-3 weeks ago, and we weren't sure whether it was a stray, we weren't sure. So rather than try and work out a solution, this app is great because you can get a picture, a GPS location, report it, and there are individuals in the local area that are in charge of then coming and trying to find the cat and figuring it out. So that's something, if you're in the UK, that is available here. So I'd like to talk a little bit about those things: collars, microchipping, and the advantages or potentially disadvantages of those.
Yeah, this is a really interesting topic because there are very strong opinions on both sides. You know, when it comes to a collar, a lot of people feel that you never want to let your cat outdoors with a collar because the collar could get entangled in a branch or something else, and the cat could actually choke to death, you know, which has happened. So people will recommend a breakaway collar. Now, in your case, I know that your cats are always with you when they go outside. So that's not really the case in your particular situation. But there, you know, if you're the type that just lets your cat out, that's something to think about, that collar can get stuck on something, or, you know, a tree branch, climbing a tree, a piece of wayward metal from a railing, you know, metal railing, anything. So that's something that if the cat did get caught, the cat could choke from that collar. So there are people who feel that, you know, you should always have a breakaway collar. I personally have all of my cats microchipped because in my area, it's required that not only veterinarians have the scanner, but all shelters have to have the scanner. So if, you know, pretty much anywhere you live, if you found a cat, there would certainly be a rescue or a shelter or a group within, you know, a short distance that you could bring that cat and have it scanned for the microchip. So, you know, and then it comes down to tolerance, because like you just pointed out, one of your cats gets very irritated. You know, some cats just can't wear a collar no matter what we try because they have sensitive skin. And then there are the cats who spend their whole life trying to get it off. You know, there are cats that, okay, I don't really mind the collar so much, but I just don't like it. You know, and I work with people who, that the first thing they, you know, the cat, we try to let it go, you know, let's give it a couple of days, and it's not going to work. The cat is, you know, consistently going after trying to get that collar off. So there's sort of a lot to unpack. The answer is probably, it depends. You know, in your case where you're not just saying to your cats, go on out, you know, closing the door, I'll see you in a couple hours. You're with your cats when they're outside. So if, you know, that kind of is another layer of safety, even with the cat having a collar. So, you know, if you're someone who just lets your cats out, you know, that may not be the best idea because they could choke if it got caught into something. But there are other options. There are breakaway collars that serve the same purpose. Microchipping, I feel like, is probably the safest thing to do, just because no matter what happens, that cat is always going to have that chip in there. And in this area, as I said, there are so many organizations that must have a scanner. So it's really not that hard to find out. A big benefit of the microchip, too, is usually the information of the vet who put the chip in is also available. So let's say that the person didn't pay the bill on the microchip, or, you know, it ran out, it wasn't renewed. You can at least get that cat back to the shelter or rescue where she was adopted from, and that can be another way to get back in touch with the owner
Oh,
if there
that's
is still
interesting.
an owner. Yeah.
Now, speak of the devil, here's Emily without her
Exhibit A. Yes.
without her collar because she doesn't like them. See?
Yeah. Yeah. Some cats, even in my cat behavior work, sometimes I have a cat who's really bullying another cat in the home. And I'll say to my clients, if your cat will tolerate a collar with a bell on it, and if your cat is strictly indoors, that can be a great way for the bullied cat or the intimidated cat to always know where the aggressive or more, bullied cat is.
Yeah, and some people say that the little bell on the collar also helps to scare away birds, so your cat doesn't murder a bunch of birds. Because some people who are bird lovers, they're concerned about cats who go and they kill the birds. So that's another thing.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned that people don't pay the bill and all that. The microchipping system in the UK, at least, it doesn't require that. It doesn't require annual paying or anything like that. So I don't think it's 100% free. I think you have to pay initially to have it injected and registered, but then there's no maintenance of it. The only maintenance you would need to do is if you need to update it, if you move. And I think then there's a small fee. I think it's only £5 or something nominal just to update the information on the thing. But if you never have to update it, you don't pay. There's no forgetting the bill and it goes out of date, which I think is cool. I think that's a really nice way to manage it.
Fantastic. Yes, because most of the microchipping here, you need to pay a yearly fee, or sometimes it might be a deal like you'll pay a higher price, but it's for the lifetime of the cat. So there is some type of fee involved, but that's probably microchipping is probably the most fail-safe way to get a cat back to her home, because the collar is not going to fall off. You don't have to worry about anything that's going to fall off or be a danger, right? It's injected under the cat's skin, so it's a pretty sure bet that if the cat is found, alive somewhere, they can find out who.
Yeah, and then there's another interesting thing you mentioned about the collar, because one person gave me this advice, which I thought was interesting. They said, if you put your name on the collar, put your name and your telephone number on there. And she said, do not put the cat's name on there, because the danger is, at least this is a thing here in this area in the UK, is that there are certain nefarious types that then steal cats and use them as bait for dogs to go and kidnap dogs. So dog nap dogs. So if the cat's name is on the collar, the person can then know the cat's name and then kind of call it, and it might come. And so she said the safest thing to do is to put your name on there and your telephone number and not the cat's name. And I thought that was interesting. I went with that advice. So their name tags do have my name and my phone number. They also have what it says, I'm chipped. So people could see, oh, they're microchipped and all that. So it's kind of like a double fail safe. But like I said, only Charlotte has the collar. Emily doesn't, which is again, simply because they both were benefiting from the collar, but Emily was getting irritated. Yeah. It was, and when I saw that it was getting red, that's when I decided to take it off.
Forget it.
On a pretty permanent basis. I might throw it back on like for the vet trip or something, but I might not. So we'll just see how that goes. But that's the thing with that. So
yeah, and that's a good tip, because you know what, there are nefarious people all over the place. So that's a good idea. Because your instinct, right, would be to put the cat's name. I mean, right, but it's probably safer to have your name on there.
Yeah, that's what I went with, and then that's just it there. So hydration is important, and you mentioned adding water to the food to slow them down. I actually do that anyway to help the cats hydrate, because cats, I guess it's not just my cats, are pretty bad, I guess, at drinking enough water consistently. So of course I've got the water bowls all over the house, and they do drink from them. I see the water go down faster than it would from evaporation. But still, I don't think they drink enough, because I can tell by the consistency of the poo of the feces, that they are mildly dehydrated. And so, and that's even when I add extra water to the food. So I'm doing that anyway to keep the food extra moist and liquidy and all that. And so I think that's something I'd like to spend a few minutes on, because even though we've talked about it before, it's a big, important issue, because dehydration can cause, problems with the kidneys and a whole host of other problems, which we know about. So let's spend a few minutes maybe talking about hydration, and maybe a couple tricks like mine about how to get the cats to drink more.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important because, like you said, cats are not always so great at recognizing when they are getting dehydrated. And, cats who are indoor cats and aren't really seeing moving water, sometimes that can be an issue. So like the first thing you just mentioned is my favorite way to solve this problem, is just put some water, sprinkle a little water on the wet food, let the wet food absorb that water. And that way they're just getting extra water content every time they eat. Sometimes I even take just a little wet food and put it in the middle of the bowl, and then have like a water moat all around it. So they have to drink more water to kind of get to that food. The other thing you could try is, there are fountains and there are these devices that make the water move, and that might entice the cat to drink the water more than if it was just standing still. Sort of many cats, still water, they're very suspect about it, because that in the outdoors, that might tend to have more bacteria. But, indoors, with the water in the bowl, obviously it's going to be pretty still. So I have even brought my cat to the water bowl, swish the water around with my finger, kind of get it moving a little bit, and then she'll go drink it. So sometimes, the cat's thirsty, the cat actually does want to drink. So if we just do some simple things when we're with the cat at the bowl, that can help too.
Oh, that's cool. That's a really, really cool tip. I think anything to get them to drink more is a really cool tip.
Yes.
So,
even throw a couple ice cubes sometimes in the water bowl too. So as the ice cubes melt, the water looks like it's moving, and it's also fresh and cool.
Especially in the summertime.
Exactly. When you think about the weather now, the water in the bowl is probably a little warm. Even though in the summertime, if it was a creek, the water would stay cool because the water's moving.
Mm-hmm.
If you throw a couple ice cubes in there, the water does move as the ice melts. So the cat gets that feeling of moving water, which entices her more to drink, and the water is nice and cool, which also is more appealing to a cat.
That's cool. So,
no,
I want to. Oh, sorry. Go for it.
No, you said that's cool, and I said no pun intended.
Oh, pun intended. I'm full of puns. I love puns. I love anything because it makes it a tiny bit more memorable. So I wanted to take a sidebar really quickly, because one of the things I'm actually working on at the moment is a press release. So I'm going to have it released all over the place, because I'm preparing to obviously launch the Kitty Boss book, the Kitty Boss, because who's the boss really, you or Kitty? And one of the things, like we talked about many times, is that I'm trying to get a lot more people to realize that they can have a cat, the easy way to have a cat. So not necessarily the people who are rescuers and all the brilliant saviors out there who really have a huge impact on cats who need a home, but those maybe millions of people out there who think they're too busy, or that having a cat is too expensive or too complicated or whatever, because they've seen books that are this thick, and I'm holding my hand here at about 2.5, 3 inches thick, because that's a real book about cats that I've read before, and it's a good book. But the thing is that it makes it seem really hard, really complicated, and people who might love to own a cat would think, oh God, what am I getting into? I can't get into this. I just don't have the time. I'm busy. I work full time. I travel. And I want people to realize that there is an easy way to have a cat that makes it a downhill battle rather than an uphill battle. And it doesn't mean that you can neglect your cat, but what it means is that it doesn't have to be difficult. They don't have to be the kind that scratch up everything and hide under the bed and scare away your guests. They can be the friendly thing, that lifetime of unconditional love that I like to talk about. So that's kind of the mission that I'm on, is to get millions more cats homes, because I know there's a lot of people out there, again, who think they're too busy, or that having a cat is too expensive or too complicated, too hard. So I want to show the easy way to have a cat, because there is an easy way to have a cat. Like, for example, I know people who thought they were too busy, they like to travel, so there's just no way they can accommodate a cat in their life. And yet having that companion animal made all the difference once they got it. And for example, Rose is the woman I'm thinking of right now. She said, I should have got this kitty years ago, because, you know, they were lonely. and so to solve the loneliness problem, if you have that, but even if it's not that, it's the fact that you might want a cat, but you think you can't afford it, or you think it's going to be too complicated and you don't have the time. And I want to show people that, yes, it's possible. So there's a book coming out. And then of course, I will also be creating a course, which I'm thinking of calling One Cat Away. It's, of course, a play on a famous marketer's thing, which is one something away. And because you're one cat away from a lifetime of unconditional love. So I'm getting ready to launch all these things. I'm creating a press release to encourage people to start building this movement around social media, to follow us on social media, to interact with us on social media, to listen and watch this particular podcast, whether it's on YouTube or listening on, Apple, Google, Spotify, because it's on all of them. And of course, I've got the website, thekittyboss.com, which currently is coming soon, but there is a space in there where if people want to be notified when the launch happens, that, they can drop me their email, and when the launch, and I won't spam people because I'm particularly sensitive about that. My inbox is insane with the amount of spam I get from, and I don't know where they got my email address from, honestly. And I thought there's laws against this. And even one very famous organization, I think it's, what is it called? Anyway, Om something. It's something about personal development and spirituality and all that. And it's a world famous, and they've got millions of followers and adoring fans, and that's fine. But I wanted to unsubscribe from their list, and I can't. There's just not only is there no unsubscribe link, but when I tried to put it into mark it as spam after trying to unsubscribe unsuccessfully many times, it won't even do that. And that thing lands in my inbox every time. Again, I thought there's laws against that, but for some reason they're getting away with murder. So I don't want to be one of those that's like spamming you on a daily basis. I know one famous, again, marketing guru teaches to email your list every single day. You know what? Maybe he's right. He probably is right. What do I know? I'm not a marketer. I'm a cat person. And so, but I hate that. Like literally when he was emailing with his my inbox every single day, I got really annoyed and fed up with it. And I eventually just unsubscribed from his crap and put it in my junk, because daily was overwhelmed. Yeah, I just don't have the time to read that junk every day. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to be sending out junk and, 3-page emails. I'll be sending out short things, I think. But the point is I'm not going to spam people, but I'd like people to sign up, because if they want to hear about, it's launching on, because I don't know the exact date. I'm hoping as soon as possible, but I don't know, because I'm still looking for a person who is savvy with designing these websites. I don't have it designed yet properly. So once I find the person and we can work together, then I'll have it. But that way I can let them know, hey, it's released now. So I'm doing a press release to build the movement, build the momentum and all that. So I have the thekittyboss.com website, which is on the screen, but for the benefit of listeners, it's THE the kitty KITTY boss BOSS.com, thekittyboss.com. People can subscribe there, and of course we'll share yours towards the end, so that people, if they need your services, they can find it easily. So that's the kind of the sidebar I wanted to talk about real quickly, because I've got that coming, and I know, and I'm mindful that I'm not necessarily a good marketer, and so this is the first time I'm talking about this and showing the site, and I probably should have been doing this from the very beginning. but I haven't mentioned it before. So there it is. That's the sidebar. And now back to the important topics about, summertime, late summer cat issues. Thank you for bearing with me.
No, it's so exciting because I love this idea that it really doesn't have to cost a lot of money and be a major hassle to have a cat. Yes, as in anything in life, right? You can, be no holds barred, no spending limit. The sky is the limit, which is fine. If you can afford that and you want to do that for your cat, great. But on the other end of the spectrum, there are plenty of ways that you can keep your cat happy for no cost, little cost. Many cat toys or shelving can be DIY, do it yourself. A lot of people will say to me, "Oh, I can't have a cat because I can't afford a scratching post, or I can't afford a cat tree. They're big and bulky and they're several $100s." Well, I usually say to people, look around your house. Chances are there is some shelving that's going unused. Put a cozy blanket on there, and here you have some vertical space. So there's always ways to provide for your cat without having to spend a lot of money. There is nothing wrong if you can't afford it with buying cat food, at the big supply chain pet stores. That's fine. Food is one of many elements that will have your keep your cat healthy and happy. So if you're doing a lot of other things and you do your best with the food with something that may not be as expensive, that's fine. My cat who lived the longest, she lived to be almost 20 years old. She completely subsisted on Meow Mix because I was young and that's what I could afford. So you just never know. And again, things in your life may change. So don't make a decision, when you want to adopt a cat who's 2, because you might be in a different position by the time that cat is 18. So I think I love the idea of making it easy for people. Even with veterinary costs, there is a program called Care Credit, where you can use a credit card to pay for veterinary care, and you can have a full year interest free to pay that off. And there are many other programs that are similar to that. There are clinics, there are organizations that will provide low cost or no cost vet care. So it may be a little bit of some research, but it's 100% doable to not have to break the bank to have a cat.
Exactly. And more on that, because in the UK, actually, there's the PDSA, which offers veterinary care for free if people are on low income, for example. So there's no excuses here, because if you're in the UK, you can literally have a cat and it's almost free. You just got to get it a little food. Everything else is negotiable, really, because I mean, if you think about it, I talk about in the book, because it's already written, I talk about the ideal plans, the idealized plan. I talk about the best things to feed it. But again, the emphasis is that this is, a lifetime of unconditional love, and your circumstances might change. But ultimately, and we talk about this again and again, a cat is better off in a loving home than it is in a shelter. Whether it's a kill shelter or not, they're better off in a loving home than in a shelter. So it's better to do what you can afford. And if all you can afford is the cheapest crap, you know what? They're better off eating McDonald's in a loving home than eating organic. Than not eating that stuff in a shelter. Just so what would you say about a human? Is an orphan better at a shelter for its entire life, or is the orphan better in an adoptive family home? But they're not rich, so all they can afford is fast food and low quality. Well, okay, it's not ideal. They're better off eating organic, but if all you can afford that, at least give them the loving home. And that's the thing. And that goes for everything, whether that's veterinary care, whether that's food, litter, no matter what it is, they're better off in a loving home than they are in a shelter somewhere where they're not loved. Well, they may be loved by the shelter staff, but where they're not, it's not their home.
Right.
And that's the really important thing.
Yes. No matter how wonderful a shelter is, it's still not a home. And so that's what, I think that point that you made is really, really good. There are many wonderful, caring shelters filled with, loving volunteers and loving staff. but it's still not a home. You think about the stress that a cat possibly goes through in a shelter, right? Every day there's different people visiting, there's different sounds, there's different cats, there's different food, because a lot of shelters depend on donations. And this week they may have a case of Fancy Feast, and the next week they may have a bag of Meow Mix. So you just, being in a home, even if it's not perfect, is way better than being in a shelter. And I will say, growing up, my home and family probably weren't perfect either. But, I had a lot of love and somebody, right. So that's at the end of the day, don't deny yourself a loving companion because you're not sure you can 100% afford every aspect of that cat. Because typically with a little research, little reaching out, I know people can always reach out to me. I know people can always reach out to you, Justin. And, there were many, and besides us, clearly, there are many, many resources out there.
For sure. And that goes especially true in our Facebook group, The Kitty Boss. And there's lots of people in there with different expertises and opinions. And you know what? And everybody's opinion is pretty good because all of us have some experience with cats. But then, my other social media as well. People ask questions, make comments, and I'm happy. I mean, I answer in direct messages for now. I can afford to do that. Because we don't have that many people. Soon, maybe it'll be a different story, but I'll still try, or maybe I'll have to hire, I don't know. But it's just, or ask for volunteers. There's always options. But the thing is that we have information at our fingertips. And so what I've tried to do in sort of the book and what I will do in the course is to sift, sort, and separate all that information out there and omit everything that's unnecessary and just present, what works, what's really, really good and what works. And I think that's the key there. And on the note of adopting a cat, because there's another thing. It's like, what about, people who think, because I know people like this, who think they're too old to adopt a cat. And that's a good one because I don't agree with that. I don't think you're ever too old to adopt a cat. And I'm not saying, if you're 96 that you should go out and adopt a 6-week-old kitten. That's, let's be real for a minute there. I mean, maybe you'll live to be 130, but maybe not. But the thing is that there are plenty of older cats that need loving homes. And if you use the system, the methodology that I am trying to teach people, you can find that older cat that's not standoffish and antipathetic. Like my dad adopted years ago when I was still in college, adopted an older cat, and there was just no option because my dad was a believer in this particular method. So he saw this cat, and this cat, gave him the signals, and so that's the one. I don't know what that is. He didn't even know what it was, like what breed it was. It turns out it was probably one of those large breed cats, and it lived with them, I think, 5-6 years. But you know what? It was the best 5-6 years of the cat's life, as well as, both my parents' lives. I mean, this was a miracle. This was the most loving, affectionate, wonderful cat in the world. Now, my parents were not elderly, so it was a little heartbreak. It was a lot heartbreaking when he finally died, but it was still better off doing that than not doing that, than having a cat that's not, a good match, or that, because my parents are both very, very busy professionals. And so it's that. And if you're older, I'm sure I can virtually guarantee that if you visit enough shelters, I'm not saying like it'll happen on the first shot, or maybe it will. And I'm not saying either that you're going to have to visit 300 shelters, but you visit 2-3 times, you'll find a cat, an older cat that will give you the right signals, that will want to adopt you. And that's a wonderful thing. It's good for mental health. It's good for stress. It's good for all these benefits that you as a human will receive. And then, of course, the cat will receive the love and affection. We talk about that because it's really important. Yes, it's very important to the cat. It's also important for the human, because that's what your actions are what make you fall in love with it. It's like a relationship. If you don't create your relationship again and again every day, it eventually goes away. And so it's really, really important. It's the same thing with a cat. You create that every day. And with a cat, it's easy because you got to change its litter every day. You got to feed it every day. Of course, if you do that with disdain, that's not good. If you do it with love, then your relationship will only strengthen with the cat. And of course, that's why I say we pamper your pet so that you imprint on each other, because it happens both ways, and both are equally important. And that can absolutely happen even with an older cat. And it can happen the hard way. If you're a rescuer, if you're somebody who's willing to invest that significant time and resources into it, absolutely can happen even with the most difficult, stubborn, abused cat. But if you don't have the time, resources, or inclination, or even desire, that's fine. There's the easy way to do it, which is what I try to show people. And so even people who are senior citizens, who are elderly, can absolutely adopt an older cat, give that cat a beautiful, loving home to embrace in its senior years. And same thing with the senior person, to have that love, that companionship. There's countless videos on social media that show an older person with a cat, and the joy that emanates then from the older person is undeniable.
And many shelters out there have programs that they call seniors for seniors, which is exactly what you described. So senior cats being matched up with senior cat lovers. So, you can check shelters around you and see if they do have a seniors for seniors program. The other thing is there are shelters who offer what's called a Care for Life program. And this could be something that would be good for a senior person as well. If there's an older cat and there might be some illnesses or conditions, and so that cat is kind of sitting at the shelter because, those aren't the cats. Older cats with problems are not usually on the high hit list for adopters, but many shelters do have what they call a Care for Life program. So a senior takes home an older cat who may be a little more expensive because maybe that cat has diabetes or that cat has hyperthyroidism, which, is very typical in older cats as well. So there are many shelters who are very creative with getting these senior cats into homes. So, if you're listening, look up to see if a shelter near you has a seniors for seniors program, or if a shelter near you has a Care for Life program. Because honestly, if you are older and you can take it in a cat that may not be, that adoptable, but the shelter will pay for the medications or any necessary vet appointments, you would be just doing something so lovely. And I believe that you would also be richly rewarded.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about that, because it's a lovely thing to do. It's the right thing to do for cats in their senior years. And of course, the senior year of the person would benefit as well from that act. I mean, in some circles, they talk about karma. They talk about selfless giving. Sometimes it's called seva and all that. You're in Jewish circles, it's called a mitzvah. Yes. You would be doing that, and that can only bring you goodness back to you. Whether you believe in spiritual side of things or not, it doesn't matter. It will bring goodness to you, even if it's just you feel good because you done good, even if that's where it ends for you because you don't believe in anything beyond the material body. That's fine. It will bring you goodness because you're just going to feel good about yourself. You've done a good thing. And so I think that's really important to realize as well, is that the benefits, there's only benefits to it. There really isn't a drawback.
Right.
So
and this is backed up in science. I know this is not just your opinion or my opinion. There have been many studies that show that having a cat provides stress release. People who have cats have lower cholesterol. They have less heart problems. They, in general, have a better sense of well-being. And these many studies show this. You can do a Google search and see how many studies have shown the benefits to having a cat in your life. So you'll be happier, you'll be healthier, and you'll be saving a life. You might even be saving two lives, because maybe you're saving your own and the cat's.
Absolutely. Exactly. The feel good is endless. So we talked about, as a sidebar, we talked about my website earlier, and we did mention things about yours. So I want to just pop it up now on the screen, because if anybody needs behavior services. Let's say you have a cat and you're at your wit's end. You might be surrendering it. You might be thinking, that's it, it's going to the shelter or going back or whatever. Well, before you do that, you need to go to Dr. Rachel Cat Behavior, because at no cost, you can apply to have Rachel's consultation, whether that's virtual or in person. If you happen to be local to her, that's to be discussed. But it's virtual is probably the easiest and best alternative. But you can have a consultation, and there's no cost to it. There's no cost. She does it because she's on a mission, again, to keep cats in those homes. So it's Dr. Rachel Cat Behavior. For the benefit of people who are listening rather than viewing, it's Drachel CatBehavior. So Dr. abbreviated Rachel Cat Behavior, spelled the American way, not the British way. So it's a great website, and it's a resource you can apply to have attention if you need it. Now, the other thing that I know that Dr. Rachel is working on is a nonprofit, because we mentioned the cost of things, and it's not something that I plug in the book itself, but it's something that I want to make sure that we plug in this show, because I think it supports each other. So my point in doing social media and this podcast is not just to sell the book and the course, and that's it. It's really to work hand in hand. So there are things that we don't mention in the book that we will mention in podcast and social media posts and all of that. So it's important that we understand that it's kind of a community and a movement I'm trying for here, and not just, a bunch of sales, although sales is great, because the more people I can help more people. So the thing that Dr. Rachel has as a major project is, if let's say you're on low income and you can't afford certain things, not necessarily veterinary care, because she's not giving money away, but it's a nonprofit that's set up to assist people who are on low income to provide for their cats. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, I've been doing my cat behavior thing for a while now, and I was running into, oftentimes after, you solve the problem and the people are very grateful, and people would say to me, I'd love to make a donation in your honor. Do you have a website? Do you have a foundation? And so I used to say, well, just donate to any cat shelter that you've worked with, and maybe where you adopted your cat, and that's fine. But the feedback I always got was people would rather donate to something that was actually mine. On the flip side, I'm working with people who the last thing they have in their minds is donating. They're low income. They still want to keep their cats, but they can't afford some of that paraphernalia. They can't afford a scratching post. They can't afford a cat tree, that maybe they can't even afford some of the toys or the prescription food. So now with my foundation, when somebody says, I really want to make a donation to something of yours, I can say, yes, I have a foundation. It's called All Cats All the Time. It is a 501c3. And then I can now use those donations to help other people who are low income buy the necessary paraphernalia that they may need for their cat. And I can't tell you how powerful this really is, because for a person who is finally reaching out for my cat behavior services, typically they're at, their wit's end, the end of the rope, all those types of cliches where you've kind of had it up to here. And they're not going to be so thrilled with running out to buy new items if the cat has already, ruined 2 couches. So this is a really perfect way for me to, work with those people who really are, more low income, or if they spent more money already than they planned to. And it really makes a difference. This is the difference between keeping a cat who has a home in her home, as opposed to, the people surrendering the cat because of this behavior problem that's just become too much, too expensive, and emotionally overwhelming. So it's really been wonderful to have this foundation. I'm very excited about it. And I feel like I'm just going to be able to keep on helping more cats, stay in their homes, which is my personal mission in life. Yes.
And I'm excited about it, because of course I'm working on getting millions more cats into homes, and you're working on keeping cats in their homes, and it's almost like trying to plug that hole. Cause if I get 1 million cats into a home, but 900,000 of them get surrendered to a shelter 3 years later. That's no good. That's not helpful.
Right.
And so you're plugging that sort of leak at the bottom of the barrel with what you do. And I happen to notice that it's called All Cats All the Time. It's called A Cat.
Yes.
Did you intend that?
Well, I didn't. It's funny because I was doing a radio show with, there was a local radio station who was honoring me on 9/11. They chose some nonprofits to honor as a way to remember 9/11 and people volunteering and people giving back to the community. So I was one of the people who were selected.
Oh, that's awesome. And does it have its own dedicated website, or can they find you through Dr. Rachel Cat Behavior in case, of course, they need your services or they would like to make a donation?
So the donation button and the little blurb about All Cats All the Time is now on my landing page on drrachelcatbehavior.com. So I haven't gotten quite that far yet to denote a whole new website, but it is on my landing page. And it's just been, like I said, an amazing experience for people they were really on that verge of surrendering the cat. They'd already called the shelter. Some people already have a date. And to be able to keep those cats in their homes, if you think about it, is saving 2 lives, because that cat who has a home stays in that home. So now that spot in the shelter can be used for the cat who really is homeless. So it's just been a great avenue for me to help, even more people because of being able to provide for that stuff. People are very grateful for it, and they'll tell me that made the difference.
Yeah. So again, that website, drrachelcatbehavior.com, has a place for you to make a donation if you're so inclined. If you have the resources, then you will, welcome to make a donation of any size to that, and it will go to helping the needy cats and the low-income people to provide. So I think that's really, really important. If you happen to be on low income, then you can apply for resources, for assistance through the foundation. But again, that information is on the main website, drrachelcatbehavior.com. So I think I'd like to encourage people to go there to either make a donation or to make use of the services, because you're in either one of you're in either one of these categories. Either you can afford it and all is well, so go ahead and make a $1 donation if you can. Any little bit helps, like the slogan for the Tesco supermarkets in the UK. It all helps. If you can do a 1% donation, even 2%, the bigger the better. But obviously, never putting yourself in financial difficulty. Right. But if you can't afford it and you're thinking, "Oh crap, no," maybe you need the services. So go ahead and apply to receive some attention there. But at this point, I think everyone should go there, either to make the donation or to avail themselves of the services, because it's really important that these kind of things happen, because cats are important to us and they're important to humanity. They're important to energy. They're important to spirituality. They're important to the physical environment. Cats are wonderful creatures and they're living beings. And as living beings, whatever you think, I'm one of those people that I don't think anyone's entitled to anything. I don't believe in entitlement. However, I believe that everyone deserves not to suffer and to be happy, but regardless of what species they are. And that includes cats. So again, while I don't think you're entitled to squat, I think you deserve to be happy and never, ever to suffer. That's my personal belief there. So you can disagree with that and think I'm an a-hole. That's fine. But my point is, I believe that's for cats too. So we would like to go there. We would like to do these good things so that more and more and more cats can be happy in a happy, loving home, and also not suffer, whether it's being abandoned in the streets or whether it's being in a shelter, whatever it is. Because I believe as living creatures, we shouldn't suffer. It's very important to me. I don't like seeing that. And I also don't think it adds anything of positive. Suffering doesn't add any kind of positive. In fact, it detracts from the world in every possible way I don't see an excuse for suffering, which is a whole other thing. I could talk for hours politically about this stuff, about policies and decisions that cause suffering, and that's where I come from with those discussions. I don't come from it from a right wing, left wing standpoint.
Can you hear me, Justin? I don't know if you can hear me, but I lost your audio. I'm hearing some nice static, though.
What I'm saying is, it's probably best to end the show. If people can't hear me, oh well. If they can hear me, it's just the audio here that lost.